the impossible choice humanity had always fought for survival. Wars, hunger, and despair had shaped their world. But now they faced a challenge beyond anything they had ever imagined. The alien races of the galaxy had united, and they wanted one thing from humanity. A choice dot in the cold metallic chamber, the man stood alone. His name was Marcus, a soldier chosen by the galaxy's leaders to make a decision that would shape the future of both humanity and the alien species. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something bigger was at play. Before him stood two alien sisters. Their presence was commanding, their eyes cold and calculating. They were the last of their kind, and the galaxy needed them to repopulate their species. But there was a catch. Marcus had to choose one of them. The Council had given him no choice in the matter. One sister, Cerise, was known for her beauty, grace, and calm nature. She was perfect in every way, the ideal candidate to rebuild their species. The other sister, Lyra, was wild and untamed. She had been cast out by her own people, a rebel with a dangerous past. The Council wanted nothing to do with her. Marcus's heart raced as the two sisters stood in front of him. Cerise, with her smooth, silver skin, stared at him with eyes full of hope, while Lyra, with her fiery red hair and defiant glare, stood back, waiting for his decision. He wasn't ready for this. How could anyone choose between them? It wasn't just about repopulating a species. It was about something deeper, about trust, about loyalty. The fate of entire worlds rested in his hands. He glanced at the Council, their faces stern and unforgiving. "Choose," they ordered. "Choose one, and humanity will be safe." But Marcus didn't know if he could make that choice. What if the future didn't lie in choosing? What if it was about something else entirely? A future where humanity and the alien sisters could live together side by side? But that was impossible, wasn't it? The galaxy would never accept such a thing. The weight of the decision pressed down on him like a heavy stone. He had always been a soldier, trained to make tough calls, but this was different. This wasn't a battle. This was his chance to change the course of history. Cerise stepped forward, her voice soft. "Marcus," she said, her tone pleading, "I can give you peace. I can give you everything you've ever wanted." Lyra, on the other hand, crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow. "Peace?" she scoffed. "The galaxy doesn't deserve peace. It deserves revolution, and I can show you how to bring it." Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. Both sisters were beautiful, but it wasn't just about their looks. Each had her own vision of the future, a future that could be very different from the one he had known. One promised safety, the other chaos. But who was he to decide what was best for the galaxy? What if choosing one meant condemning the other to a lifetime of exile? What if this choice would tear apart everything he believed in? The chamber grew colder as the silence stretched on. The Council's gaze never wavered. They were waiting. They expected him to choose. But how could he? How could he choose between these two beings who each represented an impossible future? Cerise's eyes softened as she stepped closer to him. "You don't have to decide alone," she whispered. "You can choose me, and together we can rebuild what has been lost." Lyra's voice cut through the air like a blade. "But rebuilding is not enough. We need to break free from the chains that bind us. Humanity deserves more than peace. It deserves freedom." Marcus could feel the tension growing between the two sisters, their contrasting ideals pushing him further into a corner. He was trapped, caught between the promises of a better future and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. There was no easy way out, no simple choice. And then something inside him clicked. Maybe the future wasn't about picking sides. Maybe the future was about breaking the rules. He looked at both sisters, his heart racing. He didn't know what to do, But one thing was clear, this wasn't just about repopulating a species. It was about something much bigger. Something that could change everything. I won't choose, Marcus said, his voice firm, as he turned to the council. I will choose both. The silence in the chamber was deafening. The council members exchanged shocked looks. Marcus's heart pounded as he waited for their reaction. But he knew one thing for sure. His decision would change everything. The deal with the council. The council was silent. Marcus stood tall, his heart thundering in his chest. He had defied them, made a choice they never expected. The two alien sisters, Cerise and Lyra, exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what to do next. But the tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to cut through. You're making a grave mistake, human. The chief counselor's voice boomed, shaking the air with authority. His words sent a chill through Marcus's spine. The council had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and they never took kindly to disobedience. Marcus didn't flinch. I've made my decision. I won't choose between them. Humanity has always fought for freedom, for choice. I refuse to be a puppet of your system. The council murmured among themselves, clearly thrown off balance. For a moment, Marcus thought, they might throw him into a prison cell, but instead, the chief counselor leaned forward, his sharp gaze locking with Marcus's. You misunderstand, human, he said with a venomous calmness. You think choosing both will give you power, but in truth, it will be your downfall. The galaxy will not allow such a rebellion. You cannot stand alone against the weight of our alliance. Marcus's mind raced, but his resolve only hardened. He could feel the pressure mounting from every side. But deep inside, he knew that choosing one sister would not be the end of the story. It would be the beginning of something much bigger. He turned, his gaze to Cerise, whose face was filled with confusion. She was beautiful, yes, but also gentle, kind, someone who seemed to genuinely care. He wanted to trust her, but something in the back of his mind told him she might be hiding something. No one could be perfect, and Cerise was no exception. Then, his eyes shifted to Lyra, the rebel, the one who had been cast aside. Her fiery spirit matched the flames in his heart. There was something raw and untamed about her, something that made his pulse quicken every time their gazes locked. Lyra's defiance was not weakness, it was strength. And yet, that strength might just be the key to changing the galaxy. But Council wasn't ready for a change. They wanted control. And control meant silencing those who dared to question their power. The chief counselor stood. You are making this far too complicated, Marcus. You don't understand what you're doing. These two women, they are symbols of a system you do not belong to. They will only destroy you. I don't need your approval, Marcus said, his voice steady, his fists clenched at his sides. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for the future. A future where all species, human and alien alike, are free to make their own choices. Cerise stepped forward, her expression conflicted. Marcus, please understand. The Council has its reasons for wanting to control this. They believe that order can only be achieved through unity. But what if that unity comes at the cost of our souls? Can we truly live in peace when we are bound by chains? Lyra nodded in agreement, her eyes hard but thoughtful. We don't need their chains, Marcus. We can build something new. Something that's not just about survival, but about thriving. Marcus looked between the two women, the weight of his decision pressing down on him even harder. He didn't know what the Council's plan was, but he couldn't let them dictate his future or the future of those he cared about. The chief counselor's voice cut through his thoughts. This is your last warning. Choose one, or we will take everything from you. Marcus didn't hesitate. No, I won't choose. The galaxy has tried to control us for too long. It's time for us to take control of our own destiny. The Council's eyes flashed with anger. It was clear that they had never encountered someone who would challenge their authority so openly. But as Marcus stood his ground, he felt the first stirrings of hope. He wasn't alone in this. Cerise and Lyra had chosen to stand with him, each. In their own way. In that moment, Marcus realized that his decision was never really about the sisters. It was about a future where humanity and every race could have the freedom to choose. The council had been right about one thing. This decision would change everything. But what they didn't understand was that it didn't have to be a war. It didn't have to be chaos. It just had to be a new beginning. Asterisk. Secrets of the sisters. The air in the council chamber felt heavy, as if the very walls were closing in on Marcus. The silence was deafening after his defiant declaration. But just as quickly, the tension melted into something more unexpected. Shift. A whisper of something deeper than the immediate threat of the council's wrath. The sisters had remained at his side, but neither spoke. Their faces were etched with emotion, but neither expressed relief nor anger. They both understood that the real battle was just beginning. And in the quiet after the storm, Marcus felt as if he were seeing them both for the first time, not as allies, but as individuals with secrets of their own. Cerise stepped closer to him, her soft silver skin shimmering under the dim lights of the chamber. There was a sadness in her eyes, something she hadn't shown before. "You don't know what you've done, Marcus," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Marcus turned to her, sensing a vulnerability he hadn't expected. He had seen Cerise as the calm, perfect choice, beautiful, poised, and serene, but now there was a crack in that exterior, something real, something human. He needed to know what lay beneath that polished surface. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely audible, as if he feared the answer. She hesitated, her gaze darting between him and Lyra. "I've been trained for this, Marcus. Trained to fulfill a role. To serve the galaxy's needs, to make the right choices." But her voice faltered for a moment. "I was never meant to be just a symbol of peace. I have my own desires, my own dreams." Marcus was stunned. He had never thought of Cerise as anything other than a product of the council's design. But now, standing before him, she seemed more like a prisoner than a princess. "You want more than peace," Marcus said slowly, understanding starting to dawn. "You want a choice, just like me." Cerise nodded, her eyes darkening with a sorrow that cut deeper than any weapon. "Yes, but I fear that by choosing both of us, you're inviting chaos. I was born to bring order, to help bring the galaxy back to what it once was. But Lyra, she's different." Lyra stepped forward, her fiery red hair catching the light. Like a flame. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a strange intensity in her eyes. "I'm not afraid of chaos. It's what the galaxy needs. The old ways have failed us all." She moved toward Marcus, her presence fiery and undeniable. Cerise was born to follow rules, to be the perfect candidate to satisfy the demands of the council. But I was born to break them, to challenge everything they stand for. Marcus looked between the two sisters, each a reflection of what the galaxy had tried to force upon them. Cerise, the perfect, obedient child of the system. Lyra, the rebel, the outcast who had been discarded for being too dangerous, too unpredictable. But how can we build something new if you both want different things? Marcus asked, feeling torn between their opposing visions. Lyra smiled, her eyes flashing with defiance. "Because, Marcus, you're looking at this all wrong. The council wants you to think there's only one way to move forward. But what if the future isn't about following their rules? What if it's about making our own?" Cerise's voice was soft but urgent. "I don't want destruction, Marcus. But I see what Lyra is saying. If we are to survive, we cannot continue to be slaves to the council's designs. They've controlled everything for too long. Our lives, our futures, They are not theirs to dictate. Marcus's head spun. What had seemed like an impossible choice was now a battle for something much larger than he could have ever imagined. The sisters were no longer just women to be. Chosen, they were symbols of a galaxy on the brink of change. Both had their own vision of the future, but neither would be satisfied with the galaxy as it was. What happens now? Marcus asked, his voice thick with uncertainty. Lyra stepped closer, her presence almost overwhelming. Now, Marcus, we fight for what we want, for what we deserve. We don't have to play by their rules anymore. Together, we can change everything. Cerise took a deep breath, her eyes filled with determination. But it won't be easy. The council won't just let us walk away. They'll come for us, for you, for all of us. Marcus looked at both sisters, understanding dawning on him. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their right to choose, to build a future where they weren't bound by the past. I didn't just choose both of you to defy the council, Marcus said, a fire igniting in his chest. I chose you because we're stronger together. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I can't do this alone. The sisters exchanged a glance, and for the first time, Marcus saw something new trust. It was a fragile thing, but it was there, growing between them. What do we do next? Marcus asked, his voice firm. Lyra's grin was wild and fierce. We take the fight to them. Cerise, though more reserved, nodded. Together. Asterisk breaking the chains, the stars outside the council chamber twinkled coldly, indifferent to the turmoil unfolding within. Marcus, Cerise, and Lyra stood together, their faces drawn with determination, but also the weight of what was to come. They had made their stand, but now they had to face the galaxy's response, and they knew it wouldn't be kind. Marcus's mind raced as the realization settled in. They had chosen the path of rebellion, and there was no turning back now. The council would never accept defiance, especially not from a human who had taken not just one, but both alien sisters. This was a declaration of war. We need to move quickly, Lyra said, her voice low but filled with urgency. She paced back and forth, her movements sharp and purposeful. The council will come after us with everything they have. They won't. Let us just walk away. Marcus watched her, feeling the pulse of excitement she exuded. She wasn't afraid. She was ready to fight. But what worried him was the cost. She was fierce, but also reckless. And her reckless fire could burn them. Cerise, on the other hand, stood silently, her hands clasped together in front of her. She wasn't speaking, but there was something in the way she looked at Lyra, something he couldn't quite place. It was as if Cerise had always known the path they were now treading. Her grace and poise had always made her seem perfect. But now, in the face of this rebellion, he saw a different side of her. A quiet strength, tempered by years of restraint. This isn't just about us anymore, Marcus said, breaking the silence. He turned to face the two women, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. The council has power, yes, but they also have weaknesses. We can use those against them. We need to disrupt their control. Take out the heart of their power, and the rest will fall. Lyra nodded, a fierce gleam in her eyes. Exactly. The council relies on their puppet leaders, but we can expose them. One by one, we'll reveal their corruption. We'll make the galaxy see that they aren't gods. They're just scared, power-hungry tyrants. Cerise stepped forward, her voice calm but heavy with conviction. But we must be careful. Chaos is one thing. Anarchy is another. If we don't have a plan, we risk losing everything, not just our lives, but the future we hope to create. Marcus looked at Cerise, the weight of her words sinking in. Lyra's fire was infectious, but Cerise's caution was what kept them grounded. They needed both sides of the coin if they were to succeed. Then let's make a plan, Marcus said, firmly. We'll strike at their key strongholds, disrupt their communications, and hit them where it hurts. We need to show them that we aren't afraid, that we can take back control. But we also need allies, Cerise added, her voice more forceful now. The Council has their supporters, those who believe in their vision of order. If we want to turn the tide, we must find those who are willing to stand with us. People who are ready to fight for a new way of life. Marcus's eyes sharpened. We can't do this alone. We need to build a coalition. The galaxy is full of those who have been oppressed by the Council. We need to give them hope. Lyra smirked, her eyes alight with excitement. And that's where we come in. We'll show them what true freedom looks like. We'll ignite the spark, and they'll do the rest. The plan was set in motion. But as they prepared to leave the council chamber, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The council would come for them, but there was more at play here than just rebellion. He could sense it, deep in his gut. They were being watched. There were eyes in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Keep your eyes open, he said quietly, almost to himself. We have more enemies than we think. As they left the chamber, the halls stretched before them like a labyrinth. Every step they took seemed to echo, reverberating with the weight of their decision. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of every sentient being in the galaxy. And that future could either be one of freedom and choice, or one of more chains. But as Marcus walked beside Cerise and Lyra, he realized that the chains they were breaking were not just those of the Council. They were breaking their own. They were free now, free to build the future they wanted. And it was a future they would create together, no matter the cost. Asterisk. A future built on defiance. The shadows of the galaxy stretched long, far beyond the edges of the known universe. The Council's grip on the galaxy had been unshakable for centuries. But Marcus knew they were about to face something they hadn't anticipated, a rebellion built not on violence, but on truth. The power of choice. And it was a power they couldn't control. The three of them, Marcus, Cerise, and Lyra, had gathered in a hidden bunker beneath the surface of a neutral planet. It was a world that had remained untouched by the chaos of galactic politics, a place where they could plan without fear of prying eyes. But that peace was fleeting. We've gathered support, Cerise said, her voice calm as always, but Marcus could sense the urgency in her words. But we're still far from the numbers we need. The galaxy's leaders, those who serve the Council, are like spiders in a web, weaving their threads everywhere. They'll stop at nothing to crush us. Lyra's sharp eyes narrowed. Then we need to cut the web. Fast. We've already hit 2 of their strongholds, but it's not enough. We need to expose their lies. Show the galaxy what they really are. Marcus stepped forward, a map of the galaxy spread out before them. His finger traced the key points where the Council had the most influence. We strike here, he said, pointing to a dark, distant system known as Arender, a system heavily guarded by the Council. This is their hub. If we take it, they lose control of communication between their fleets. But Arender is a fortress, Cerise said, her voice quiet but firm. It's protected by their most loyal forces. It won't be easy. Marcus nodded, acknowledging the difficulty. It won't be. But it's the perfect opportunity to expose their weaknesses. If we can take down their communication grid, we'll cut them off from each other. The Council will fracture. Lyra grinned, her excitement evident. I like it. It's bold. We'll need a diversion, though. Something to pull their forces away. Cerise's expression darkened slightly. And what will happen when they realize we're not just a few rebels, but a threat to their entire existence? The Council won't back down. They'll escalate. Marcus met her gaze, his mind turning over their options. I know, but we have no choice. If we don't act now, we'll be playing their game forever. The galaxy will remain a puppet to their strings." The room fell silent as the weight of his words settled over them. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for something much bigger, a chance to change the fabric of the galaxy itself. They would either succeed or be crushed under the might of the Council. "We do this together," Marcus said, his voice steady. "We make them see that humanity, we are not just pawns. We are a force to be reckoned with. We break their chains, and we build something new. A future where we choose." Cerese's eyes softened, a flicker of something approaching trust. "And if we fail, then we'll die trying," Lyra said bluntly, her eyes full of fire. "But we won't fail, not this time." The tension in the room shifted, and for the first time, Marcus felt a bond between the three of them, a shared purpose that transcended their individual differences. They were no longer just allies bound by circumstance. They were partners, each bringing their strength to the table. That night, they made their final preparations. Lyra's plan was audacious, a diversion that would pull the Council's forces to the far side of the system, leaving Arender vulnerable. Cerese, with her calm demeanor and precision, would be their strategist on the ground, infiltrating their strongholds and destabilizing their command structure. Marcus would lead the charge, coordinating their efforts and making sure they struck. Hard, fast, and with purpose. As they prepared to leave, Marcus looked at the two women. They had both chosen to stand with him, to fight for something beyond what the galaxy had ever allowed them. It wasn't just about freedom, it was about choice. The galaxy had denied them the right to choose, but now they were taking it back. "Do this together," Marcus repeated, the weight of his words settling deep within him. "For a new galaxy, a new future, one where we choose our own path." Cerese and Lyra nodded in unison. Their resolve matched his own. The countdown to Arender began, and with it, the beginning of the galaxy's greatest rebellion. A rebellion built not on weapons or armies, but on the power of choice and the defiance of an unjust system. They were no longer fighting to survive, they were fighting to live. The new dawn. Final preparations were made in the dead of night. The galaxy outside was quiet, as if holding its breath in anticipation. The quiet hum of the ship's engines was the only sound as Marcus, Cerese, and Lyra stood in the war room, watching the stars streak by. The journey to Arender was dangerous, but the stakes had never been higher. This was it, the final confrontation. The tipping point. Marcus stood in front of the large screen, eyes scanning the data as it flickered across the holographic display. Arender is heavily fortified. The diversion will buy us only a few hours, no more. Once the Council realizes we're hitting their central command, they'll throw everything they have at us. We can't afford mistakes. Cerese's fingers brushed the map, tracing the paths they would take to infiltrate the fortress. We'll need to split our forces. Lyra, you'll lead the team to breach the outer walls. Marcus and I will go for the communications grid. Lyra's fiery eyes sparked with anticipation. Fine by me. Let's light this place up. Cerese shot her a knowing look. This isn't about just making a splash, Lyra. We need to dismantle. The Council's control systems can send a message. If we're too reckless— I'm not reckless, Lyra snapped, but there was no real anger in her voice. She was ready as Marcus had ever seen her. Marcus stepped in, the weight of their mission pressing down on him. Lyra's right. We don't have time to debate tactics. We strike fast and we strike hard. And when the Council realizes what we've done, they'll understand humanity isn't someone to be ignored anymore. There was a sharp knock at the door. One of their scouts, a grizzled veteran from a distant colony, stepped inside. We've arrived at the outskirts of Arender's space, sir. No signs of the Council's main fleet, but the station's defenses are active. They know. Something's coming. Marcus nodded. We expected that. Ready the team. It's time. The scout gave a short nod and left to relay the orders. As the ship hurtled closer to the heart of the Council's power, Marcus looked out into the endless stretch of stars. It was almost poetic in its quiet beauty, the calm before the storm. The future of their galaxy rested on this moment, and Marcus knew that no matter what happened next, everything would change. "Are you ready?" Cerise asked, her voice soft but unwavering. Marcus turned to face her. The woman who had been the perfect, docile solution to the Council's design had become a fierce ally in their rebellion. She wasn't the same woman he had met all those days ago. She was stronger, braver, and ready to face whatever came their way. "I was born ready," Marcus replied with a small smile. Lyra walked up, her expression full of fire. "We either succeed, or we burn this place to the ground. Either way, we're making a statement." She grinned. "And I like that." For the first time, Marcus saw the full picture. Cerise was the balanced calm, calculating, her trust in their plan absolute. Lyra was the flame wild, untamed, and ready to turn everything to ash if it meant a new beginning. And Marcus? He was the link between them, holding their visions. Together, forging a path forward. "Let's make history," he said, his voice steady, resolute. The assault on Arender was like nothing they had anticipated. The diversion went smoothly. Lyra had led the first wave with the perfect blend of chaos and precision. The Council's forces had been drawn away from their central command, allowing Marcus and Cerise to infiltrate the heart of the station undetected. But as they moved deeper into the facility, it became clear that something was wrong. The walls were eerily silent, and the corridors felt too empty. The hairs on the back of Marcus's neck stood on end. The Council was never this unprepared. They always had eyes everywhere. Always. Then it hit him. The feeling he'd had for days. The sense that they were being watched. It was too quiet, too easy. "Cerise, something's wrong," Marcus muttered, his voice low, but full of concern. Cerise glanced around, her sharp eyes scanning every corner. "I know. Stay alert." It was then that the trap was sprung. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the station, and the lights flickered off. Emergency alarms screamed through the metal walls, flashing red. Marcus and Cerise dove for cover, just as a wave of Council soldiers poured into the hallway from hidden access points. The Council had been ready for them. This was no simple rebellion, it was a trap. "We've been played," Marcus said, his heart pounding. "Get to the grid now. We have to complete the mission, or all of this is for nothing." Cerise didn't hesitate. She bolted to her feet and ran, her voice cold and focused. "Follow me." "We don't back down now." The sounds of gunfire echoed in the distance, but Marcus was already moving, determination setting in like a force he couldn't stop. They had started something bigger than themselves, and no trap, no matter how cunning, would stop them. As they approached the central command room, Marcus's comm unit buzzed to life. "Marcus, this is Lyra." Her voice crackled, full of static. "The diversion's been compromised. We're facing heavier resistance than expected. But we've got the Council's fleet on the move." "You have—" The message cut out abruptly. "Damn it," Marcus cursed under his breath, but Cerise grabbed his arm, pulling him into the control room. Inside, they were met with a shocking sight. The Council's central hub, which should have been teeming with technicians and soldiers, was empty. But in the center of the room stood a figure, a tall, cloaked individual, their face obscured by a hood. "You," Marcus said, his voice sharp. "Who are you?" The figure slowly turned. Their eyes, glowing faintly, were cold and ancient. "I am the one who has been watching," the voice said, low and familiar. Marcus's blood ran cold. He recognized the voice. It was someone from his past. Someone he thought had long been lost. Asterisk.